Okay, welcome everyone. I would like to call to order the West Basin Municipal Water District Engineering and Operations Committee and special meeting of the Board of Directors. So Mr. General Manager, could we have a determination of quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Tommy Favai. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray. Director Don Deere. Here. Director Scott Houston. And Mr. Chairman, we do not, or excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item up is presentations. Do we have any today?
Mr. Chairman, before we get to the presentation, I would like to call upon public comment.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. Public comments. Do we have any public comment today?
We have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there is any member of the public that would like to speak in a public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see a request for public comment.
Okay, now we can go to presentation.
And staff has no presentations for today.
Okay, so moving on to the action calendar, our item is the agreement with the California Water Service Company for funding contribution towards the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant Phase 2 expansion project.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 5A begins on packet page 3. And just for a little bit of background, I do want to bring it to the committee and the board's attention that this is an item that we've been discussing now for some time. I do want to thank our friends at Cal Water Service Company for all of their work on this, as well as our entire staff, which has been dedicated not only to the project, but building upon the project partnership. And we are very happy to bring this item today, as it will bring to a close the agreement that has been discussed for many years now with Cal Water Service Company. So for this presentation, we do have Eric Owens, our Assistant General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Good evening, Chair Alvarez and members of the committee. As the chair mentioned, this item is related to a funding agreement associated with the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant Phase 2 expansion project. This project was, of course, achieved substantial completion in January of 2025 and final completion in July of 2025, so just a few months ago. However, as the general manager indicated, this agreement has been a long time coming, and in discussions with Cal Water has been delayed for various reasons over the course of the last couple of years. Primarily, we are coming before you today because our partners had wished to ensure that West Basin had achieved a long-term supply agreement with Marathon before we executed this contract and the funding was completed. Of course, that was brought before the board in September and executed, and so now we do have a long-term agreement with the Marathon Refinery, and in fact, it's a three-way agreement that includes our partners at Cal Water as well. One other item I would point to as a part of the history here in the discussions with Cal Water, it became apparent probably a year or so ago that they would need to identify an asset that they would own as part of this funding agreement. And so staff worked with them, I believe in 2024, to identify a section of pipe. That also required us to go back to the State Water Resources Control Board to get that section of pipe removed from the funding agreement with the State Water Control Board, which has also happened. And so the only deviation between the information item that was presented to this committee back in November of 2024 is really the execution of the Marathon agreement has now occurred. And so what this ultimately provides West Basin in table 1, is that it provides $4 million funding from Cal Water for the financing or to contribute to the costs associated with that Juanita Miller McDonald Phase 2 microfiltration system expansion. And as you see in that same table.
What page is that table on?
3.
Page 3. Thank you. Yes.
As you see in the table, this entire project cost was about $30 million. However, with the help of outside supporters like Cal Water, the refinery themselves, and State Water Resources Control Board, we have achieved grants of approximately $14 million, remaining balance of about $16 million in low interest loans to fund this. So funding is all done. Again, the project is all done. And tonight, per this agreement, not tonight, but once fully executed, sometime after the board approval on Monday, presumably, the contract will allow for Cal Water to supply that payment within a 90-day period. And so I'll pause right there. I think I've touched on all the highlights. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, that's it. Director Pave, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions at this time.
Director Deere?
No. Okay.
I have a question. First, after the execution of the agreement, how long did you say before they had to pay?
90 days is what the agreement is.
That's been pending for 4 years. 4 years we've been offsetting this, and still 90 days. Okay.
You want to give more time?
I would say.
You might want to give them more time. I was like, they should have had the check here today.
Yeah.
We've been very patient on this. The other item is, we have talked about them needing an asset, and that was always the pipeline. But in the report, there's, and clarify, in addition to the pipeline, they're getting the 3 tanks.
No.
Okay. So why is that exhibit in that presentation?
What may not be apparent, I'd have to look at it, is in the exhibit, it attempts to highlight the pipeline between the Cal Water's current meter, potable meter, and
It
Right.
does, but then it has pictures of the tanks and I was showing, okay, that clarifies my question. Right, I don't have any other questions. I only have one complaint. And I already stated it. But better late than never.
Well, Director, I would say that Ken Jenkins, I think a senior VP at Cal Water, has indicated that, he has every intention of paying this as quickly as the contract is executed. While it does allow for them to have 90 days for their own processes to be, to cut that check, we will certainly convey to them that we would love to receive it as soon as the ink is dry on the paper.
All right. With that, are you okay moving this forward, Director Pavey?
Yes.
Move this item forward. All right, moving on. The next item is the amendment to contract W3179 with Amtech Construction for the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility Fire Protection System Improvement Project. Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item 5B will be presented by Veronica Govea, our engineering supervisor, and the item begins on packet page 72.
Good afternoon, directors. This particular project is referred to CIP 10130, and you can please follow me to page, I believe, 75 with the PowerPoint presentation. So this project started from the need to upgrade our fire protection system at ECL. The original fire protection system was designed back in 1993 by a company called Simplex. That company was later on purchased by Johnson Control. And since then, the Johnson Control has been in charge of monitoring our fire protection system. They test, they produce reports, and basically all equipment is proprietary. So due to the fact that we had difficulties on getting the fast attention sometimes to amend some of the issues that needed to be corrected at the facility. And also the lack of ability to get competitive pricing with someone else because of the proprietary rights. We went and designed a project that was bidded, and the project, the lowest responsive bidder at the time back in May 2025 was Amtech Construction. Amtech Construction, so with a powerful presentation into the next page, we went through the contracting and we were able to issue a notice to proceed for them on July 31st of 2025. And the completion was expected to be October 29 of 2025, which was basically 90 days for construction. The contract amount for which the contract was issued was $264,715 and a 10% contingency, which is only $26,471. So far, we haven't approved any change orders. However, we do have, some items that are pending, approval too. But going through here, I believe we are up to date on all the requests for informations as well as the submittals. In general description of the work, we were to basically swap some of the existing systems and create install new devices that were more competitive, and that's why we had the Silent Night devices for fire protection. In addition to that, we were going to include a new panel for those new facilities, the Silent Night, as well as the annunciator at the controls room. And to the next page, please. So just to give you the overall image of where are those fire protection facilities located at, or devices at, these are the buildings. We have the visitor center, Ozone building, Barrier filter facility, the reverse osmosis building, the electrical rooms on the north and the west side, the Title 22 facility, as well as the sludge dewatering building. Next page. Thank you. These are just some photos of the progress of the construction in which Amtech, as the prime contractor, started construction of the facility. As part of Amtech's team, they have West Coast, who is the integrator. Into the next page, please. Again, these are just some of the pictures as the construction was ongoing in removing the panels and installing a new one at the visitor center. Next page. So status. So the contractor was able to go through the reverse osmosis building, Ozone building, and the North Electrical Load Center. However, there are still some facilities that were unable to be completed as originally expected, because as we progressed on the project, we found that some of the devices were unfortunately missing. So if we can go into the next page. You can see on the highlighted areas some of those devices that originally were expected to be found in the field, and unfortunately they were not there. Again, the facility also, please keep in mind that these facilities were originally designed and constructed as part of design build packages, as well as the original fire protection system has been always since for 30 years the same company basically. But some of the issues that we have found were like some missing devices, including their conduct, which also created other issues with the time to complete the project and some cost impact. So in order for us to complete the project as is expected, and which it was approved by the fire department in the city of El Segundo, we went through the process of identifying how many devices were missing. And essentially, right now, there's 70% of the devices that have been already installed, but there's 30% of the devices that are still to be installed, including some of their cable. The cost the contractor provided as a change order is child $92,000, and provided this project was only $264,000 overall kind of contract amount. 10% contingencies, unfortunately, not sufficient for us to pay for those additional expenses. So for this reason, if we can go please to the recommendation on the board memo. For the same reason, we're here to basically request the board that the board authorize the general manager to increase the budget by an additional $92,000 for a new total contract amount not to exceed of $383,000.50. And two, to amend the contract W3179 with an additional contract duration for under construction once the negotiations have been completed. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Saleh, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Can you go back to the last slide where you mentioned like the missing conduit and missing devices? So, can you expand more? What do you mean by missing devices and missing conduit? Does that mean like the last vendor that actually installed these devices, they never installed these devices, or was it stolen, or
Well,
conduit was, wire was stolen? So what do you mean by missing?
so there was basically, there's a combination of items. Some of these devices are kind of hidden, or like, for example, in the heat detectors, they can be behind like HVACs and, and some of the devices that are motion sensors look very alike, like smoke detectors. So there seems to be that there was a this unfortunate situation in which like some of those motion sensors were confused with the smoke detectors. And looking at the 1993 set of plans, it seems like also the smoke detectors that we believe, 2025, were more like, there was a different terminology for how they were communicating on what those devices were. Some of the devices are, unfortunately, they're new. They were not, it was an upgrade that the designer also included that the plans approved by the fire department up to code. But again, because of some of these devices are difficult to get access, it was those conducts are basically not visible. And there was a situation in which when we went to install the new devices that we were calling out, the cable was not there. So
Oh, is it
yes.
because these devices are proprietary? Is that why?
Yeah, so the system has been there for 30 years, essentially. And again, it has been the same company, though they have changed names due to the purchasing of the companies.
Mhm.
So again, not having the ability for us to maybe have another set of eyes also to look into this, it was very difficult for us to basically identify any other, situations like this in which maybe if there was more ability for us to openly hire another contractor, maybe we could have cut it.
So I just want to have an understanding of this. So like before this went out to bid, was all this included in the bid where each vendor, they actually have to identify and then look for things like this?
So when we prepared the plans, essentially the vendors, everybody was under the impression that it was just like mostly like the swapping of the equipment and that the cable was there. Fortunately, as we started to dig more in, some of these devices are really high up too also. So it's very difficult to get access unless you have like a scaffolding or a very large ladder, you may not be able to get access or they're kind of hidden. So because of that reason, it was very difficult to identify whether those devices were in present at the time that the design was being, performed. And again, because the designer was preparing a set of plans that was going to be up to code, there were some devices that were basically, thought to be existing, and unfortunately, they were not there. We were following some sort of record drawings also from 1993 that some terminology could have been a little bit misunderstanding to today's new terminology.
Veronica, if I could jump in, just add some personal insight. When we reviewed the 1993 documents, the designer used a symbol of SE for photo sensors, apparently. And I think it was fair to assume that that meant smoke detector. And when staff did their field checks ahead of this design, as it turns out, the photo sensors that are on site right now look very similar to smoke detectors. And so from the original design drawings, it was understood that smoke detectors, as one example, existed. And from everything that staff could see, appeared to be physically present. Well, once we got the contractor on board and on site and they started doing their own more invasive checks, they realized it's not a smoke detector, it's a photo sensor. And on top of that, they realized that there was never any existing conduit. And so the original design contemplated simply swapping out smoke detectors, again, as one example. And yet now we have to run conduit and buy new smoke detectors in order to install them for the first time in 30 years.
Okay,
And to that, like the devices are included is the cable, the one that we need to run. Yes.
yeah, thank you for clarifying that, yeah.
Director Leo. Just a follow-up to Director Blavet's question. It is kind of strange that this happened at all. So for when you bring this back to the board, can you expand or add to the staff report a table that lists all the rooms and where new smoke detectors and conduit extensions needed to be installed,
Yeah, I believe that's easy enough to do based on.
as opposed to the little drawing that we have here? Because I think if that's the only locations, going for $100,000, that seems like an awful lot of money for a handful of locations.
Agreed, and I think the locations are much more extensive than just these examples.
I'm asking that you add to the report, a table would be nice, that we go room by room and, you know, new smoke detector, because all we had there was a motion or sensor detector and, extension of conduit 20 feet, 5 feet, whatever type of thing.
The change order, just to clarify, the change order is for conduits only. The devices are already included in the original bid. So you want just
Maybe
the
that would be something we could elaborate on so that we have a good understanding, because the comment was made that we needed to purchase additional smoke detectors.
Yeah, and I apologize, that was my statement.
Okay? All right, with that, you good? Okay, so we'll move that item forward. We are now on information calendar, and we're gonna have the engineering operations update quarter capital improvement program and technical planning program. So, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 6A is on packet page 83. And we will have Eric Owens, our Assistant General Manager, and Susanna Lee, our Manager of Engineering, kick off this report. However, I do want to note that we do have our project leads and managers here to touch on any project that you see within the report. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Eric Owens.
Thank you, EJ. Before we get started, Chair Alvarez and members of the committee, I'd like to just first get some input on the structure of the engineering report that we've been presenting. If you recall, I think at the beginning of this calendar year, we made some changes to how and what we were presenting to the committee, specifically as shown in the memo right there, items number 1 through 3, whereby we would focus particular engineering or operations material within a given month, such that all material would be covered 4 times a year, and all material would be covered at least every 3 months. And so just as a reminder of that, we're in October. This month's report topic is focused on the CIP projects and the status updates of those, as well as technical planning program efforts. Next month will include focus on water distribution delivery and water compliance activities from Uzi's group. And of course, in December, to close out the year, we'll be focusing on water production, sales and such, as well as asset management activities. So I go through this effort just to mention that one thing we've been doing, despite this intention to focus the material on these very specific topics, is each month, the memo still includes updates on specific operations activities in the next section, as well as following the operations monthly operations updates, a brief written description of any capital updates within that month. And you know, what you find, especially on the capital projects, is there's not a lot of change or significant updates between, you know, from one month to month, which was really the entire reason that we looked to structure this new approach this year, with coming to the board every 3 months with an update on, say, specific capital projects. So I guess where I'm going with this is to ask if the committee has any preference here. I would like to recommend that we only present in the memo the information that that month is bringing. So for instance, the capital descriptions that you find in the body of the memo this month would be there this month, because we are focusing on the capital today. But say for next month, we're focusing on the water distribution and delivery, we wouldn't include all of the capital descriptions, again, because there probably won't be a lot of change between tonight and next month, but that information would come back to you the next time in January. And so just really trying to streamline the body of this memo to really keep it focused on the intention of that monthly item. But I didn't want to presume that the committee didn't actually want to see all this data all the time. But I think from a staff perspective, streamlining the activities of the memo and just relying on the staff that are focused on that month's topic would make our lives a lot easier. Additionally, and I know we've talked previously about the attachments, specifically, you're going to continue to see a monthly barrier production attachment every month, regardless of what the topic is. But the vendor contracts for engineering and the vendor contracts for operations, you know, we always include those as attachments, but we don't discuss them. So I'm looking for feedback from the committee as to whether you want to see those every month, you want to see those with some less frequency, or is that something that has just been there forever and nobody cares to see them anymore? So if the committee doesn't mind, any input or feedback on kind of streamlining this particular monthly report would be useful.
I have a comment. With respect to things like the vendor list, I would appreciate seeing that every month, because I do look at it and it's just an easy place. I know where to go to look where we're at. I understand that we don't really discuss it here, but it allows board members to keep track of different consultants and contractors that are doing work and pretty much the magnitude of what they're doing in terms of the dollar magnitude of their work. So I would appreciate that. The production data, same. So all of those additional materials, I would request that you leave those in.
Happy with that.
Okay, we may not, and I know we've never really, I think it's been very infrequent that we've asked questions about the vendor, regarding the vendor list. But having that information is good. And the other items will be discussed from time to time, but it's good to have that every month just available. And knowing that we can just go there and see where we are for the month of September.
Understood.
Okay,
All right.
all right, so we can go continue now. I think that answers your question.
Just for point of clarity on the body of the memo, you still prefer to see the monthly operations update and the monthly CIP written updates?
Towards the end, you focus on whatever the main item is for that month, and then leave that towards the end. Secondary item.
All right, we can go to the first page of the presentation, or the second page. There we go. So as an agenda for this this presentation tonight, again, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on the capital improvement program and the technical planning program activities. Before we get to those, we will look at the look ahead for items that we're intending to bring either to the board next week or E&O committee. Tonight's agenda does include a review of the 10-year CIP forecast that was requested at our last E&O committee. Staff is prepared to discuss all of the projects that are listed in the table shown on this agenda sheet. But of course, it's completely up to the board if they want to hear any or all of this information, or if you would prefer to select particular projects that you'd like to really focus on. But again, we have staff available to discuss any or all of those six there, those five. And then, of course, as we've already discussed, we have various attachments within the standing attachments within this board packet. We can go to the next slide. Oh, one more. A lot of divider slides. So really quick as a look ahead to November and really, as I mentioned, before we get to November, this October, we do have two ratification items that we're intending to bring to the board on Monday. Remember, these are repairs that occurred that now need to be ratified by the board after the fact. Our policy has been to bring those to the first available board meeting after all of the information is prepared and put together and ready for ratification. So you will see those at Monday's board meeting. We are anticipating an award for landscaping services contract, an award for well sampling, the contract that's associated with our injection, barrier injection obligations, an award for reverse osmosis membranes at the Torrance Refinery water recycling plant in order to continue to meet our water quality obligations under that contract. We're going to be requesting an approval from the committee and ultimately the board to solicit for on-call material testing services and labor compliance on-call services. And of course, also looking for approval to issue an RFP or request for bids associated with the rehab of filters 1, 5, and 10. And you may recall in recent months, we've come back and we've discussed success that we've had with the previous rehab of 3 other filters. Now we're ready to move forward into the construction of the next 3. And of course, as information items, we'll be prepared to discuss system selection for the DCS. That would be the non-proprietary software. And then we'll be providing this engineering and operations report with a focus of quarterly water distribution and water compliance. And so I'll pause right there before turning it over to Susanna to talk about the CIP forecast and just ask the committee if we could switch back to the previous 2 slides. If there's any particular projects that you'd like to hear about, or would you just like staff to go through one by one of the list in that table?
I'd like to go one by one here. Is that okay with you, Chair?
Before moving on the action items, on the well sampling, this is just for regulatory purposes.
I'm gonna look to Lucy, but I believe so.
Yes, we have to, as part of the barrier permit, we have to sample the monitoring wells, 11 of them, one a nested one we own, most of the county. And that requires special services because you can no longer discharge it to the storm drain. You have to have a hauling truck. You have to have proper kind of street protection, traffic control. And so we always go out to bid to get the professional services that know how to do the well sampling properly, but who also have all the other equipment associated with it.
Okay, so that gives me 2 more questions to ask. One is, apparently from what you said, we own 1 monitoring well.
One nested well, it's 3 aquifers, West Basin 1.
And the others are owned by,
The County of Los Angeles Public Works.
so why do we have to do the sample?
Because the barrier permit lists those wells. They were wells that were decided. They actually own many monitoring wells, but they identified representative wells that were done through studies a long time ago. And those are in there. It's a part of our barrier permit.
And it's also part of an MOU with the county.
So second one, and you caught me by surprise that we have to, we can't discharge when we're doing the sampling, which is not very much water.
Agreed.
Under the municipal permit and NPDES permit, you discharge up to 100,000 gallons per day.
Agreed.
So most of the well sampling that's done and so on, we just discharge.
Correct.
Why can't we get this to just qualify or say we're operating under the municipal permit?
I love that you bring that up because West Basin, we have to operate under industrial wastewater permits. We're kind of in that gray area. It's just how we're identified. We do bring it up to, we have a regular annual meeting with the regional board, DDW. We bring this up as kind of a example of where maybe environmental regulations are slightly contradictory. You're bringing in fossil fuel burning truck to haul away all this stuff. In order for us to discharge it, it's a lot of it's the aquifer water wells that as a retailer you would discharge out to gravel, sometimes area sump, and even into the storm drains.
Not that much water.
But they don't see it that way. It's seen as a discharge waste in which we need a permit. We'd need to conform with the California toxics rule and even at some point the ocean plan.
I get that. So I'm back to my point, and maybe it's just the point that I want to make. It's ridiculous. We should be operating under the municipal permit, and it should be 100,000 gallons per day, and we shouldn't have to pay for all of this. This is an awful lot of expense to pump that water, put it in a truck, haul it away. When it isn't that much quantity of water, I bet you it's not even 5,000 gallons to do a test.
Pretty well
Probably
cased, yeah.
less than that, significantly less than that, but I'll grant you that much. And it's an incredible amount of money to have these trucks standing around and hauling stuff away because they're going to charge you whether they haul 1 gallon or 2,000 gallons. They're just going to charge you. So I appreciate that you said that our environmental regulations seem to be contradictory, and they are, and they're burdensome, and sometimes they're just plain old stupid. And in this case, this qualifies under all of those. So what can we do? We need to go back to the regional board and say, we are here to produce municipal water, and basically in support of municipal water system, and we should be treated as such.
We do go back, we bring it up every year at our regular meeting. We've actually gone to great lengths. They usually will refer us back down to the permitting. What we do want to tackle, Matt and I recently talked about, is maybe even through water reuse, how these wells for other people too are labeled slightly different just because they're under a reuse permit. I'm glad we have that support. I will tell you, half of the wells we have grass parks we can discharge to, but for the other part, we would be happy. We continue to try to come up with other options. We would love to be able to explore that more, but we haven't gotten very far yet with the regional board as they just are in a silo of what permit we would fall under.
Okay, but it's strictly a discretionary action on the regional board. You know, we had an industrial permit. This is now a new requirement that they put in there. And I don't know who was the brilliant, and I'll just stop there. They came up with this as a new requirement because it's like, you allow this. There are permits that already allow the discharge of water from wells and other
Drinking water wells.
Huh?
Drinking water wells.
Drinking water wells are stuff we're putting out there is not much different coming from a drinking water.
I agree with you. I'm just telling you where they
Okay.
distinguish.
So call it an industrial waste permit, but the reality is that this is clean water being discharged by others, and apparently this is a new version of our industrial permit. They've added this, and it is not a reasonable add.
It's actually not added to the permit. What was enforced later was that this regulation is out there and that before under the if you remember, retailers used to also be able to discharge to the storm drain. Now you have to dechlorinate. There was an effort years ago for them to prohibit that. When that regulation changed, it sort of brought with it this requirement that if it wasn't a drinking water well, and I think it pertains also to, sometimes there are drinking water wells that have VOCs or a contaminant in there that are on standby. They also now have to comply with this. So it's not allowed, but you have to get a separate permit. So it was more that it's required as a part of some of the other regulations that have changed over time. But we would love to look into it.
Yeah, but I also know what we're discharging and it's just ridiculous.
Agreed.
Okay, so I would go back to the regional board and said, you know, because we've never done this. So you're asking for new authorization to spend money that we haven't had to do in the past, and it's quite a bit of money. It's just not a reasonable request.
We've actually been doing it this way for about 8 years, 9 years.
So maybe I haven't paid attention, but when you just told me I gotta put water in and haul it away, and I'm going like, I can drink this water.
Agreed.
Director, I might suggest that, you know, WRD does this kind of sampling quite a bit as well for both the Dominguez Gap and the Elwood systems. And so we can certainly compare notes with them to confirm that
We have.
the way we're doing it is the way they are doing it. And then perhaps even combine with them to both go in front of the regional board and plead the case for some.
If they're doing it the same way, it's just as ridiculous.
I agree. And I believe they are, but perhaps together we can emphasize to the regional board.
Who's our permit writer?
Ooh, on this now, there's a various different ones. We have Stephen Webb, Danielle, and it depends what branch we're in. This might even fall under a whole different category versus our WRRs and WDRs and our brine permits. But I could find out who the permit writer would be for this type of permit.
Let me know,
Okay.
please. And thank you.
You're
I
gonna
don't
reach
know.
out on behalf as a consultant.
It's ridiculous.
Well,
Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, these are the kinds of things that drive people insane.
Well, we thought about turning them into temporary recycle water fill stations every time we're discharging.
Yeah, that was another really,
Oh, sorry, that's distraction one. Thank you.
Chair Alvarez, did you have any other questions?
no, that's
Mr.
it. I
Chair.
think.
Mr. Chair,
President-
hi, this is Director Gray.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can we turn to page 92? Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and the rest of the committee. So this section is in response to Director Popeyes' last committee request. And we're here to look at briefly on CIP 10-year forecast. I won't go into depth, so feel free to come back with us with any questions for any particular projects. Can go to the next slide. Obviously, with the engineering department, we do have a 10-year CIP, but I'm dividing it into two specific periods, CIP 5 years versus the 10-year CIP forecast, because for the 5-year forecast, we look at the budget and the cost more closely, and we update that with any indexes and then any change of scope and updated scope. So the 53 projects that listed, we feel comfortable with the updated cost that is total to about $230 million. For any year 6 and out to 10 years, there's additional, 20 some more projects with about $27 million. Those are mainly based on the 2018 CIP master plan. So just take those costs with grain of salt, knowing that those have not been updated in a number of years. Next few slides, can go to the next few slides. So all the 75 projects are divided into the next 3 slides. And with the first slides focusing on the more near-term projects here. So the tables include the total project costs, that's, planning all the way to construction. And then it has the year start and the projected year, ending date for those projects. There are a few projects in those, in this table in particular, that, highlight projects that in constructions or bid it out. So, for your considerations. The next slide will be more like the near, midterm projects, further out from this 10-year, durations. And then the last, or the next slide is really out in the 10-year, mark. So that's total 57.58 million, the 16 project. And we also include one more table, the next slide. Those are the few projects that staff have identified, as part of the potential project from the Pure Water South Cal in LA. And so we don't have a cost estimate, but we just have a high level cost estimate based on consulting numbers and data. So with that, if you have questions, ask. Or we can go back to provide more detail when you have a chance to look at them.
If I could just add that as a reminder that this information is so far out in the future, we've included it as, one set of possible projects that might be required if either of those two larger external partner projects move forward and we were to interconnect with them. I believe the committee requested that we do include any potential known projects out there, and that's what these are. But, realistically, these would be in construction beyond even the 10-year window.
Director Fave, you have questions?
Yeah, I like the timeline, how you set this up. And I think when you like categorize the projects where they're planning, in design, planning, construction, I think that's always good. Just like the near term projects that are coming up in the near futures. I think that'll be good. Kind of understand what category they are and what stage they are.
Yeah, we have that information, and while today it's just a representation of the possible projects in our future, we certainly can present in the future when we think the design phase would happen, or planning, design, construction, and give you that more granularity.
Director Deary, you have any?
No, I think I'll stay on it.
President Gray, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you.
I'll start out with one of the pure water projects. These numbers are much larger than I ever imagined they need to be. So I'll begin with that comment. But whose responsibility is that to build these facilities? And we're looking at two different projects there. We're looking at Pure Water Southern California, which is the Metropolitan Water District, LA County Sand District project. And then we're looking at Pure Water LA, which is the LA Water and Power LA Sand project. And we probably will not be involved in both.
Correct.
So how do you really see that happening? And who's going to really pay for all of that? Is that going to be a shared cost? Is the cost out ours?
I would suggest, Director, that these are not even Class 5 estimates. These are concepts that have not been fleshed out whatsoever. So staff have tried to give an order of magnitude cost that they might see, but we have zero information to inform the costs that are associated with it other than lines on a map. And so at the request of the committee to include as many projects as we might, that might occur in the future, these are ones that if we were to partner in either of these projects, could possibly be required. And that's about the extent of what I could say about the project. It's a name on a piece of paper and a dollar value that is really probably just got grasped out of the thin air. But
Yeah, I think a couple of the projects, the project costs were identified by Shara when they were providing hydraulic analysis that result from that. In terms of funding, because we don't have any funding agreement with, either LA or MWD, we don't know what the funding source will be. We included these for potential projects that we're going to be looking at as part of these two major projects. You're right, most likely, hopefully West Basin will not be paying for these projects, but at this moment, we don't have agreement, so we include.
Okay, so with that, just adding that, and you guys have raised, advised us before on this, there are ongoing studies that we're not funding that are being funded by primarily Metropolitan to look at some of these facilities. So when those are completed, then we'll have a better idea of what they think is needed and what those studies determine is needed and a better estimate of costs.
we might have a class 5 at that point.
Yes, we just had a meeting with Matt and
Right.
we'll have better pricing by end. Maybe.
So then I'll go back to the 3-page wish list of projects that are the $290 million or whatever the total is. These are not really all necessary projects, and if I go back, as you reference the master plan, which we have not revisited in a while, but the master plan, and I have to go back and look at all these projects, assume various treatment plan improvement projects based on different scenarios and what the level of treatment we were expecting to deliver water at. So is this just the complete wish list that was in the master plan?
Well, some staff may take issue with calling it a wish list. But what I would suggest is this is the list that we have today based on perhaps what the picture looked like a few years back, as you mentioned, largely defined by the master plan. Now that we have Jacobs in the driver's seat as our O&M contractor, I would fully expect in the next year or two, we can utilize their support in working through our asset management system and really take a detailed look at some of these projects that were assumed maybe 5 or 10 years back and revisit what that wish list might look like under today's conditions. But again, that so-called wish list, is going to be based on things that we need to do today to continue our service today, but will also be informed and defined by decisions that are to be made in the next 5 years or so, associated with those other pure water opportunities. So it's going to be difficult for us to say without any sort of certainty that this is, the entirety of our need for 5 or 10 years, given the changes that are going to be available to us in our source water supply. And of course, with our new, I'll say renewed focus on maintenance at the facility. With Jacobs and the new contract, I'm fully expecting that they're going to be perhaps maintaining some of these things that previously thought to be an end of life, needing either an R&R capital replacement. And maybe we can squeeze some more life out of them until we're certainty of supply in the source water is more certain.
Okay, so all of these will be revisited as we move forward to actual needs based on current conditions, not the kind of assumptions that were made for master planning purpose.
Yeah, that's right. This list was identified at a point in time and conditions changed. And of course, this was years ago. So it's fair to assume these things haven't gotten better per se, right? The equipment hasn't gotten younger. But we're not treating this as if it's a simple checklist that we're just going to go down the list and check off each project one by one. In real time, on a case by case basis, I think before we bring a project to this board for consideration, even into the design phase, we are looking at the real world needs of that project, not just following a list that was developed previously.
Thank you. Okay, keep going. Was that the end of the presentation?
For this section, I'll turn it over to Veronica to go over the next few projects.
How's your project coming along, Veronica? Your favorite project?
First,
Yeah.
it's almost there. So can you move on to the next slide, please? Good. There you go. Okay. So on this one, the project, yes, is not on schedule. However, we're on budget with the pipeline project. Just to give you a magnitude of the construction costs and change orders, they are going to be able to be covered under the 10% contingency that was approved. And also we do have a line item from which we're going to be getting a credit, which is about $1 million. So we may not be on a schedule. However, we are under budget. So we're within our budget. In regards to all the remainder of the documents, RFIs, submittals, everything is we're up to date. So we're just like wrapping up some items. It's mostly administrative components like compiling the record drawings, final O&M manuals, and all those items that we need for the pipeline project, as well as doing an erosion control around the master meter that was suggested by the city that we needed to do. So yes, so we're working on that, and that's included on all the construction costs. Next slide, please. Again, this is just a general idea of all the activities that had occurred. We had our testing of the master meter on July 9, 2025. So again, remaining components are mostly administrative. Next line item, please, or next page, please. Again, this is part of the project labor compliance agreement. And as part of that project, we had multiple contractors as well as CRAPs. I think you can appreciate the number of teams that we were able to work with. Again, because the project is now basically a stop, it's mostly administrative components. What we're doing, we're no longer seeing an increase on those, but mostly like a closure, getting a closure into all those items for percentages. Next item. Again, this is just also another summary of the PLA for apprentice and at-risk workers. Next item or next page, sorry. Pump station project. So again, on this project, yeah, we're estimating our completion almost any given day, to be honest. We have issued one change order for the amount of $58,000 and change dollars, which is within our 10% contingency. So far, we still have additional contingency left. Administratively, we have all the documentation pretty much up to date. Every now and then we get a new RFI and we address as soon as we can. Into the next page. So again, this is just the part of the original schedule that we had. And again, the anticipated completion, we're still anticipating to be finishing anytime soon. We were hoping to be done at the end of this month, but again, because we need to do a 14-day test, we might be seeing these days to be like end of October, beginning or like middle of November. We started the testing of the pump station. However, we had to pull back for our activities. We had one component fell, so we had to replace it. So now we're going through the process of making sure that we have all the checklists cross-checked and to make sure that everything has been, reactivated accordingly. So before we restart the pump station again. Next page. These are just some photos of the construction. Again, because the construction is starting to wind down, it's there's less of the construction activities that you see when the building was growing up from bottom to top to roof. Next page. And these are just more construction photos. Next page. Again, the pump station, it's also under labor compliance. Again, on this one, we are on our tier, on our local percent goals. We did approach tier number 2. We were not getting enough participation under tier 1, so we had to expand it. At risk, unfortunately, we were not able to get enough participation on that one. However, we were able to meet our apprentices. Again, because the project is winding down, you see that the levels of the participation going down too. Next page. Similarly to the other page, you have your at risk and apprentices percent goals as it was up to the month of August 2025. Next page. So it's handling projects. So I'll take on this one too. And this project, the project is under construction. Kiewit Construction is the company that was selected for the project. Notice of proceed was issued on June 14, 2025. We have weekly meetings, project still under, budget on current budget. And again, we try to maintain responses to all administrative components, RFIs, submittals, up to date as much as we can. The next page. So this is the slide that I borrowed from John. He put together and basically just summarizes in both visual as well as words the scope of the work, which includes the installation of new components that had been in our books for replacement. Next page. These are just some of the pictures of the progress of the construction. This is the concrete slab where the dewiring system is going to be installed. As you can see, there was an area that was pretty available. There used to be gravel in the area, so now it's going to be a new dewiring system that we're going to be utilizing during the implementation of this project. Next page. These are also some of the pictures. These are some of the pictures of the sludge tanks that we procure as part of that pre-procurement process being removed. You can see in the on the right hand side, the slabs already for the new tanks are in the process of being fabricated and to be delivered soon. Next page. So this, as part of this project, not only we have construction, a contractor, a prime contractor, but we also have some equipment that was pre-procured in advance due to the fact that they had long lead time on those and the fabrication of those components. And what I tried to do here was like to summarize like the names as well as the dollar amount for what we purchased those equipments, as well as what has changed during our last meeting that I think we presented for the sludge tanks for a NAS construction PO. We requested additional funds in order to cover some of the changes. We have been able to execute one change order for the amount of $23,000. And again, there was still, because we needed additional funds to add elements to that change order, we came to the board and we got an approval to increase that tier to a 17% total contingency. As you can see, there's still, out of that amount that we requested as an additional, we are still going to have left approximately like shy $32,000 still available for the project. And basically that should be able to, to be maintained, for completion. Right now, we have been in the process of getting some of the equipment already being delivered. Universal Filtration has already sent us their filter cloths. Pace has already been getting their equipment into ECL. Blue Angel also has started to deliver all their equipment, and Arnas Construction, they're expected to deliver the first tank on the second week of November. And yeah, it's basically coming along all together. Next page. And this, I pass it on to John.
Yeah.
This is-
Okay, good afternoon, directors. So presenting with DCS replacement project. So yeah, we had the kickoff in mid-June. We're about 4 months in. We're currently on schedule still, with anticipating bringing that GMP back to the board in September next year. We're going through some RFIs and submittals. We've currently processed all of the current RFIs. The submittals there is actually, we've processed 10 now, so we've only got 1 submittal remaining that we're reviewing at the minute. Pre-construction costs, the contract is for $2,122,411. And so far through September, we processed 313,279. So we're on budget still against those tasks. Estimated construction costs, I put this in here because if you remember when we first presented on the project, we estimated an original construction cost. So the original estimate for the GMP stage of 8 to 12 million. We recently got the class 5 estimate in, so this is our first cost estimate for the GMP, and it's coming at 14.7. This is mostly due, I'll cover it in a little bit. This is mostly due to increase in the complexity of our system that we've been finding through the condition assessment. And we're anticipating a class 4 estimate in January 2026. This one should be much more dialed in because by then we will have selected the new system. Next slide, please. So these are the tasks that we've been doing over the last 4 months. We've been very busy the last 4 months. We've been holding workshops, 2 4-hour workshops a week. And we've also been out in the field doing loop checks for the last 3 months. So effectively, we had a kickoff in June, did our planning workshops. Then throughout July, we were doing condition assessment site visits, so assessing the current condition of our system, looking at industry standards, technology trends to see what's out there. Because obviously our system's 30 years old, so it's important to know the other systems that are out there. We were coordinating that condition assessment that took place July, August, and September. We actually finished that a couple of hours ago, the loop checks and condition assessment. And then we also did a gap analysis as to where our current system is and where we'd like it to be with the new system. In August, we started our category A loop checks, and I'll get on to what that means in a minute. And we did the initial workshops for selecting our new system, from taking it from a long list of 13 systems down to a short list of 4 systems. And we started planning our functional control narrative. So that's looking at how our current system is operating and documenting that very closely so that we can replicate it in the new system. And then in September, we moved into the category B loop checks, which I just said we finished a couple of hours ago. And we were finishing off those functional control narratives and narrowing down that long list to a short list. Next slide, please. So loop checks are what's taken a lot of time over the last 3 months. We've been doing a lot of design workshops, but loop checks are what's taken the most amount of time. So effectively, this means going out into the field for category A points and basically going up to individual pumps. So you'll see that control panel there is for a pump, and turning the pump on, turning the pump off, running the pump up to speed. Testing the alarms on the pumps and having someone back in the control room and making sure they're seeing that on the screen of the control room. This is really important because what we're going to do when we install the new system, we're going to put this new system in, and if we connect up to something in the field and we don't know whether it was previously working or not, then we don't know if it's a problem with the installation of the new system or whether this thing wasn't working to begin with. So we have to go through every single point that we're going to bring over to the new system. We originally estimated 10,000 points. That was from an audit in 2021. We've actually found that we have 14,500 points. So there's an increase of just under 50% of the points coming into this system. 2,000 of those are what we call in category A. So those are hardwired points. That's a direct wire from the pump in the field, say, to the actual controller, to the actual thing we're replacing. And then there were 12,500 points that are category B. So effectively, those are going from the field to a field PLC, a field kind of control cabinet. And then from that cabinet, they're being sent across to the controllers we're replacing. So for those points, we were able to do about 300 points a day during loop checks, which is pretty quick pace, where effectively we had one of the team out in the field connected up to this PLC with a laptop and changing the points using their laptop rather than actually turning a pump on and off. So we were able to get through twice as many points a day on that. I'm pleased to say that we finished all of those points earlier today. It's been a lot of effort. It's taken us 12 weeks to get through all of this, but we've learned a lot of things about our system that will be incredibly useful during commissioning and would have caused a lot of headaches and probably huge change orders if we found them out while we're actually installing the system. So it's better to find them now in the first phase of the project than when we're actually out in the field installing the new system. Next slide, please. So if you'll remember on this project, we weren't sure what system we wanted to select. We know Emerson Ovation, the one that we've currently got, but we didn't really know in-house what other systems were out there, which ones would best fit the district. And this system we're installing is potentially going to be there for 10, 15, 20 years. So we need to make sure we pick the right system for the district. We started off with a long list of 13 different systems and did a very comprehensive evaluation through all of those, spreadsheets and scoring across, I think it was in the end about 60 different categories for all of these different systems, reaching out to vendors and working with them. And we ended up narrowing it down to 4 systems. You'll be pleased to hear that all 4 systems we select are non-proprietary systems. The 4 systems in the shortlist are Plant PAX by Rockwell Automation, Somatic PCS 7 by Siemens. There's a system platform by Aviva with Schneider Electric Modican hardware, and then inductive automation ignition top level with Rockwell Automation Allen Bradley hardware. So those are the 4 systems in our shortlist that we'll be evaluating in even more detail over the next couple of months. And we aim to have a final system selected by the end of December, and we'll be presenting that to the board in January. Eric mentioned it earlier on, but on the agenda for next month, we have an information item where we can go into more detail on this if the board would like, or if this is an appropriate level of detail, we're happy to not do that next month. It's up to the board. Next slide, please. This is our schedule. As I mentioned, we're on schedule currently, so we're coming to the end of the current system assessment phase, and we're halfway through the alternatives evaluations. I mentioned we should have a system selected by the end of the calendar year. We've just started our standards and governance section, so we're looking at those functional control narratives, and we're effectively starting to develop and put in place those systems that are going to maintain this system for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So that's cybersecurity standards, programming standards, networking standards, putting all of those things in place so that moving forwards, we don't run into this issue where we have an obsolete system. And then in the new year, we'll be working on the actual system design. So in January, we'll bring back to the board and E&O the presentation of our final recommendation for the system. In May, we'll present a class 2 construction estimate. So we'll be getting we've got a class 5 now, we'll get a class 4 in January, class 3 in around February, April. And then by May, we should have that class 2. And that will be the last kind of major construction estimate we have before we bring back the GMP in September. And I think that's the last slide. Yeah, so happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before we move on, do you have any questions on this, Director Pave? Do you, Director Deere? President Gray, do you have any questions on this one? So, and you mentioned it several times, this is a progressive design build, maximum not to exceed price. So can you remind the board what a progressive design build contract is and why that may be a vehicle that we chose?
Yeah, absolutely. So progressive design build, it's a way of delivering projects. This is the first one that the district's ever done. And effectively what it is, it's like a normal design build where you bring on board a team who are going to design and build the system. So they're the contractors that are going to be installing the system are in right from the beginning. But with a progressive design build, you effectively split the project in 2. So you have a design stage up to 60%. And then the design builder presents a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price, that effectively says, we will finish the construction, we will do the construction for this guaranteed maximum price, and we guarantee it won't go beyond that. And at the end of that first phase, they will present that to us, and we have the option to either take that, sign the contract, amend the contract, and move into construction, or we can take what's called an off-ramp, where we can say, no, that price is too high, we think we can do it cheaper, we decide not to go ahead with the project, and we can effectively stop it at that point. And for this project, that GMP, we're estimating it to be in September next year.
Okay, so given that the price kind of evolves. When we started out, it was a progressive design build maximum guaranteed price at that time of about $12 million. And now it's potentially 14 million. And that's a preliminary estimate to be refined. So the cost of this project looks like it's going to be considerably more. Couple of questions. Theoretically, what you just said was that there is an opportunity to terminate the project when we come back and say, well, given what we know now, if we're going to finalize the design and build it, it's going to be X price versus Y price. If we were to do that, what would be the implications? If we were to say that is too much money and we don't want to follow through with this, what would be the implications?
So the implications contractually, effectively, there's a break clause in the contract. Well, the contract is currently written to the end of the pre-construction.
No, I get the contract. What is the implications of saying we're not going to finish this because the cost went from 12 million to 18 million?
Are we talking the implications operationally?
I'm talking the implications operationally of terminating the contract and moving forward, and how would you move forward at that point?
Okay. So operationally, we would continue to see failures of equipment that we're seeing now. We can anticipate some relatively large failures of the
I
control.
get all that.
Okay.
Talk about the reality. You've invested now, I don't know, in the design portion of this $1 million.
Yeah, 2,100,000.
Right, so 2,100,000, and at 2,100,000, we're gonna come back and say, whoops, the project that we told you was gonna cost 12 million, cost 16 million.
John, if I could jump in.
Yes, you might know where I'm going.
That's right. I mean, that's the perhaps beauty of the PDB, right? Is that the board does have an off ramp if the price is not palatable, we can't come to an agreement on that GMP, but we will have at least the 60% design in hand, at which point we can take that to 100% and put it out on the street for traditional bid advertisement and let competition determine whether that guaranteed max price was appropriate or too high. And if that price is unpalatable, well, then as John was starting to mention, we would look to just incur a lot of costs associated with shutdowns and repair issues.
You have to live with the system. So the reality is that we're gonna come back at some point, you're saying December, or whatever the date was, with the next phase, which they will have completed their 60% design. And you'll bring back a level 5 estimate, which is still pretty high. Are they going to abide by the level 5 estimate at that point?
Well, guaranteed max price is just that. They are obligated to achieve that price unless, of course, there are owner initiated changes after that fact, but they owe us everything in that design for that price.
So the answer is yes, we will have a known price at that point. So point one, I think we've had this discussion offline, that I'm not so much a fan as I've lived through these progressive design builds, that it's that worthwhile. It's much more worthwhile for the design build team than it is for an owner. And I'm probably back to recommending that for most projects, go with this, the design build, and lock in a price. I haven't seen any benefits yet of progressive design build. They all tend to come in higher.
Well, I would suggest, Director, that if we.
But I'm just making a editorial comment.
All right, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, just kind of what I see happening industry-wise and so on. On this project, we're gonna have to deal with the reality that it's gonna be some, I mean, already you're saying 12 to 14 million, and I'm going, okay, it's probably gonna be in the 16 to 18 million dollar range. I hope I'm wrong,
You won't be surprised.
but I won't be surprised when you come back with that number.
Did I hear the response to your comment? He was making a response, you cut him off.
That 12 million was not mentioned
No, because with a progressive design build, like the design build, you're not getting an engineer's estimate. It's, you know, our internal estimate, talking with vendors. We haven't had an engineer on board at that point. I will also say with this project in particular, it's not just a 60% design that we'll have at the GMP. What we've done is we've front loaded a lot of the programming standard, a lot of the standards and governance documents that we haven't had at the district for 30 years in terms of managing this system. We will have all of those in place, fully written and at 100% by the time we get to the GMP. So we will have a huge amount of other documents that are useful, not just the design.
So moving forward at that point, moving the project from the 12 to whatever that number is.
The Director Deere's comment, you know, my comment was going to be around that if we had delivered this as a design build, our knowledge of what this project would take was in that $8 to $12 million range, and that's what we would have contracted to deliver. However, with the progressive design build, we do have the opportunity to work hand in hand with the designer as they inform that design to more detail, so that we truly have an understanding of what those things are that drove that price up to $14 million. And then ultimately, again, and I think a more collaborative effort, we'll have the ability to negotiate that construction price and hopefully get it into a territory that is more palatable. And that could be through value engineering to get it back down, but there's several different ways to do that. Whereas with the design build, we just don't know at the beginning.
I would hope when you bring this back that those options are there, and then that we also have the real option of saying we can go ahead and move forward with the contract that is with their, whatever that maximum price guaranteed is at that point. Or we can take the documents that we now have, 60% documents, which are more thoroughly defining the project, and put it out to bid.
That's
Those are
exactly
two
my
options.
expectation.
And those really are where we will be.
And I'll go a step farther, Director, in suggesting that we will also, whichever recommendation we bring to the board, whether it's to go out to bid or to move forward with the progressive design builder, we'll also come back with our plan on how we're going to pay for this project, one way or the other.
John, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add, we're talking about design build and progressive design build, and I do agree. I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues across the industry. Progressive design builds keep coming in much higher than expected across the industry. It wouldn't have been possible to do this project as a design build because the state build doesn't allow for design build projects for rehabilitation projects. You can only do progressive design build for rehabilitation projects that are over $5 million. It's one of the quotes of the state bill that you cannot do design build for this type of project.
Well, it depends how you want to define the project, but we'll leave that one aside because it's been done. All right, so the reality is that we're going to come back and we are going to get presented with a couple of options.
That's correct. You will have an off-ramp if the board chooses to take it or move forward with the current.
Well, the off-ramp and put it out at that point for a bit. Okay,
Going back to John's point, on next, does the committee wish to listen more detail on the selection? Or you have enough information on?
I will ask that we bring it with more detail, but along the lines of at least what I'm asking questions, because that's what I'm interested in. I don't need to know the minutia detail on the design. I need to know the bigger picture.
Well, if we could be, just for clarity, so I understand, what John was saying is next month's information item will focus on the selection of the system to be continued to be designed around and ultimately constructed. If it's the committee's wish, we can bring that in detail, or we can wait until after the new year to bring the award selection, I think at that time of hire.
Why don't you bring it next month with the selection of the system and maybe expand a little bit more on some of the policy areas that we've talked about. In looking at all the systems, the system we have now is what?
Emerson Innovation is.
Okay, so why, since you wanted to move from Emerson's from platform, yet I saw Emerson twice there. Why do we waste the time?
We thought it was fair. So in our replacement efforts, we did initially years ago look at replacing and upgrading with Emerson. Emerson have repeatedly told us that the issues we have with our current system are due to the fact that we haven't been updating the system. And if we were on their updated system, everything would work well. The design builder that we procured have experience in Emerson Innovation along with the other 12 systems there. So we discussed it and they decided that it wouldn't be too much effort to put it in there along with the other systems and evaluate it. It didn't end up being one of the top systems. So it's just for due diligence purposes.
Okay. All right, move on. What's our next project?
Next project is the district at South Bay Development.
Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Today I will be presenting the district at South Bay for the Arson Reclamation Authority development. In the light of bringing all committee members up to speed on the project, the staff have prepared a presentation with the background of the project. Would you like me to go over the full presentation or just high level?
Yeah,
Remind me,
I'd like to hear the full presentation.
So if we could move to the next slide, I'll go back to that one, but just to provide a very quick update on, not update, but like a background on the project. It's worth to mention here that this project, it's a developer-driven project with a long history of changes. The project site is located in the city of Carson between Main Street and south of Del Amo Boulevard. In the 50s, between 50s and 60s, the site was utilized as a Cal Compact Class number 2 landfill with 5 separate cells that you can see. You can see them illustrated at the bottom picture on the right lower corner. Throughout the years, the site has been extensively tested to identify contaminants. In 2010, the city installed 950 linear feet of 6 inches PVC recycled water pipeline for irrigation. By 2015, the Carson Reclamation Authority was formed to acquire and remediate the site because there have been a lot of motions and stuff on this project. Next slide, please. In 2024, the CRA resumed infrastructure development for the project. The idea is to develop roadways, buildings, and improvements along with landscape areas that will utilize recycled water coming from West Basin for irrigation purposes. Because of this, in September of 2024, West Basin and CRA entered into agreement. Next slide, please. That emphasizes in 4 main items, which you will see here on this slide. The first one is that the CRA will construct and install a 4,000 or average 4,000 linear feet of 6 inches PVC distribution line to extend the existing pipeline. This is illustrated on the graph on the right side of the slide. During the process of getting to the agreement, it was noted that the pipeline will be constructed along the proposed Leonard Drive side, but because of the site history, it is required that the construction starts from the south part of it to going to north, just because the residential, so now it's like the landscape, the land use have changed, and now they are doing a mixed residential use. So the residential part has to be the last part of the project that will be built. Another item that the agreement inquired is that everyone working on the project is required to have a OSHA certification. They has over 40 hours because of the risk on getting exposed to certain contaminants as being a brownfield site. And ultimately, the CRA will transfer the ownership of the system to West Basin after it's accepted and fully unsuccessfully constructed. So that will happen in the agreement. Recently, what we have done and part of the effort to facilitate the construction and acceptance of the system is that West Basin released an RFP for on-call construction management and inspection services in August 21st. The proposals were due on September 18th. We received 3 proposals that are currently being evaluated. Construction of the pipeline, it is estimated to start construction in fall of this year. However, recently, given the different things that the project requires, the CRA were asked by the Los Angeles County to move the flashing station that is part of the system out of the public right of way. So because of that item that came just recently and that arrived, now the city is yet to grant an easement for West Basin to access and maintain the system. So currently our legal team is reviewing the agreement to see whether the agreement needs to be amended or not with the new easement. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions, Director Deere? President Gray, you still with us?
No, I'm here. Thank you, but no, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. The CRA is building and paying for this.
All right. Yes, it's
So-
it's all reimbursed.
Why do we need on-call construction management services?
It's just for the inspection. It's part of the agreement. It stated that because the existing pipeline was constructed in 2010. We don't know the current conditions of that existing pipeline, and we also want to make sure that the new pipeline that will be installed is up to the standards of the West Basin Recycle standard.
So brings me to my second question. Which is, they're building it, they're paying for it, they own it. Why do we want to have it transferred and accept the maintenance responsibility when we don't need to do that?
I don't have a history of that. Perhaps someone in my team will answer.
Somebody above your pay grade.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is a project that is being
so
in the history was facing for a long time.
why do we want to own it? There are segments of the recycled water system we don't own, we don't maintain, we don't need to, we deliver water to that point. In this case, it would be the same thing. We don't need the easement. We don't need the headache, the perpetual headache of maintenance of that segment of pipeline. We would save money. We don't need to inspect it. They'll inspect it. We're just delivering water to the edge of that colored area where our existing pipeline is, and they'll connect, and we'll inspect the connection. So
this has been a long-
I don't see I guess I'm asking for somebody to tell me, here's the benefits in owning 4,000 feet of pipeline that somebody else already owns. And you will, by owning it, accept forever maintenance.
This has been a longstanding principle as part of our system, obviously, to have multiple different parties owning different portions of our service area or our distribution system. You will note that there are portions that are owned by individual retailers. So Cal Water Service Company does own small portions of it. But this has been our standard practice. And you've seen that actually, I think more directly where third-party entities, commercial entities have actually paid for the construction and constructed those portions. If you look at Intuit Dome, and I believe this section and the portion that was constructed by, who's the developer that, yes. They've always constructed it and handed it over to Art, to West Basin as, the owner of the entirety of the system.
You know? Okay. So, but I don't think I got an answer to my question. With all
Well,
due respect, the answer that I heard was historically and traditionally, this is the way we've done it. The question is, why would we want to incur the additional cost that comes with owning and maintaining a facility if we don't need to?
I would say that there is a great deal of benefit because typically we would build upon the extension of all of those pipelines. So to identify a portion of a pipeline, and I think the Dominguez Business Center, I think is an example. I'm trying to go back through the history of it. We continue to build off of each pipeline. So the ownership of the system in its entirety provides a great deal of benefit as far as ensuring the ability to deliver water throughout the system. Now, I can understand the perspective that there's potential cost savings at that one point, but I would say owning the entirety of the system, there's a great deal of benefit in it.
And there may be other cases, but I look at this particular one, all I see is expenses. I still haven't heard why it's worth doing. And it's pretty much a dead end system ending up right against, you're not gonna, I don't see the extension possibilities here. So again, we're gonna pay for construction management that we wouldn't need otherwise. We're gonna,
Reimburse. That is all reimbursed.
what's that?
All of services,
All the services are reimbursed. The inspection services. as
including
well.
our staff time.
As they've always been, including the Continental Development and staff
We're
time.
not paying for that, but we will inherit the maintenance of this thing. So why own it? Anyways.
Frank's on the line. He has a long history of the project. You can have purveyors or a retailer own it, but if you're going through multiple parcels, it's a different requirement for water districts. But Frank, I don't know if you're still on and you can give some background and answer that, please.
Sure. Yeah, that pipeline extension is going to go through a public road. We'll have individual meters to each to different sites. So unfortunately, the Department of Public Health wouldn't allow one meter to supply the entire site and then have sub meters to different parcels. And so the benefit to the district, I would say, is that the CRA is paying for all the pipeline construction costs in addition to the inspection services. Yes, West Basin would take ownership of the pipeline and have to maintain it, but we would have additional sales as a result of having this pipeline extension.
Director, I would suggest that.
So let me, I need to respond to this or ask a follow-up question. So we have a pipeline right now that delivers water to the city of Los Angeles. And the city of Los Angeles picks it up and has their pipeline and delivers water from that pipeline to various customers. And we don't own that pipeline. The city of Los Angeles owns it. We only deliver water to that pipeline. And I don't understand, maybe you guys can help me. What's the difference here when it effectively looks to me the same case? We deliver water to the city of Los Angeles in a public street. That water then is picked up by the city of Los Angeles in a recycled water pipeline that they have decided to keep and own. And they have meter services, or they have services, whether they meter them or not. We estimate the amount of water that they deliver, and actually it's been a point of contention between us and them because they have taken the liberty of flushing water in order to maintain the line. Because I'm gonna go into all the reasons, and then didn't want to pay for that flushing water. So you just told me that no, we can't allow that because the law doesn't allow it, etc. I don't understand how we can have two very similar projects, two municipalities, and in one case we have one line of reasoning, and in another case we have another line of reasoning. Something doesn't add up.
It's owned, that line is owned by DWP though.
I get it. It's the city of Los Angeles. This is owned by the CRA, Carson Redevelopment Agency.
Who is not a water permitted.
They You don't need to be a water purveyor. This is a recycled water line. They can go get a permit to operate a recycled water line. They don't need to be one.
I think the key differentiation is that the city of Los Angeles is not in our service area. These folks are. Additionally, in the case of the city of Los Angeles, because Lucy points out, they're well versed in maintaining pipelines and pump stations and everything else in between. Whereas here, I think we are the best entity to ensure that this pipeline is maintained. So that our customers who are at the end of this line, unlike LA, who's LA customers at the end of their line, our customer at the end of this line ensures that they receive quality product and quality service.
I've stated my point. All I hear is rationalization. But we're incurring a lot more expense by doing so. And leave it at that.
What I would like to do for you, Director, is maybe work with Uzi and Frank and determine exactly what a maintenance cost looks like on a pipeline this size with the appurtenances that are going to be installed. Because I would suspect it's pretty small cost incremental.
It's just a bunch of dead ends that we can at some point say, hey, somebody else can own. Okay. All right, that's my comments on kind of this and food for thought.
I think we have one more to go.
We have one more.
I'll streamline this as much as possible. Good afternoon.
This one's a short one. I understand you're making
Yeah,
real
it
progress.
is. It's only 2 slides or 3 slides, sorry. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. So I'll be giving you an update on the DLD elevator modernization project. So just very brief here, we're in the design phase right now. Got a kickoff meeting on July 22nd. Anticipated completion for the design phase February of next year, 2026. So that design cost right now contractually, we're at $149,573. And invoices through September total $65,214.75. And we don't have any RFIs for those right now on the design phase. So next slide, please. So just here, a very brief update. As I mentioned, we had the kickoff meeting on July 22nd. We held a sidewalk on August the 7th, 2025 with the architects, which is the prime and their subconsultants. You'll see the picture there on the right. That includes mechanical, electrical, and fire life safety, along with our own staff. We did receive 60% design drawings on September 17th for review and comment, and we did provide comments back to the consultant on September 26th. I do want to update that next bullet point here, because as of this meeting, or during this meeting, actually, I did receive the 90% drawings already. So we got those well ahead of time. Those were anticipated to arrive in December. And so maybe that last February 2026 date, we will be ahead, but don't hold your breath just yet. So that is when the construction bid package should be ready, but hopefully sooner. Next slide, please. And related to this project, but you probably saw this ongoing actually at the lobby today. The hydraulic jacks replacement, which is actually not part of the modernization. We decided to do this now as an emergency project, being that one of the elevators is not functional. So final shaft measurements were actually taken on July 11th. And the jacks arrived actually this month to the contractor's facility. The work actually started today, and we will be working on elevator number 2, which is the non-operational one, which also leaves elevator number 1 accessible to staff and the public. So once that's inspected, work is completed, then we'll have that elevator up and running, and we'll switch over to elevator 1 to replace the hydraulic jack there. And the replacement of the hydraulic jacks is actually scheduled to be completed on November 12th, next month. And that is it.
Do you have any questions for the Director Deere? President Gray? I don't have any. I think that pretty much concludes everything. Okay, so we will move on to Director's comments. Director Pave, do you have any comments?
No.
Director Deere?
No, good meeting.
President Gray? Okay, I have a question We have two projects that we discussed, I think last month, or maybe it was the month before. And those are two recycled water pipeline extensions in Gardena and Carson. Both of those are being done basically under the Corps of Engineers. Subsequent to our meeting and our discussion that we said that the Corps of Engineers is gonna fund the projects, et cetera. The current administration has frozen all of the Corps of Engineer projects to the tune of $11+ billion in the blue states. You wonder how that happens. So do you guys know what the status of these projects are? Are they in that frozen category or?
Currently, as far as we were informed that it's not being impacted.
No, it's still on process for approval at their offices. So they have corresponded back to us because we had the same concerns. And they have mentioned that these the funds are secure for this project. So yeah, we should be fine.
Okay, so
It's worth noting though, this is these projects were approved through legislation. So Congress, it's a earmark if you want to use that term. Secondly, I believe they put a hold on all non-essential projects. So in this case, there could be some gray areas to whether this is an essential project because I'm sure the administration doesn't know that much about it. The fact that the funding is not frozen, I do think that there's going to be a process for us to see exactly what the Army Corps does, because ultimately, once it goes through the process of approving the language, somebody's going to have to execute that agreement. And I would anticipate that there's going to be some additional scrutiny on the agreement when it gets to that point of execution. And so I would say now that though it's going to continue through the process, we're going to have to wait and see exactly when we hear back from the Army Corps.
okay, so it'll be interesting. I guess we need to track it.
We are closely
there's no
tracking it.
Guarantee saying that it's moving forward for approval. So let's be realistic. World has changed in ways that we would never have anticipated. And so at this point, these projects may not make the cut as, part of that whole $11 billion that they just decided. Because that whole $11 billion was basically projects that Congress had previously approved. Hasn't stopped our current administration from just moving forward and say, we don't care what Congress did.
That is correct. And I know, so Matt Bay was in the back of the room, probably after 5. He
Decided that,
but we did present on this during the Water Policy and Legislative Committee during the federal update. We can bring that back to the full board or present next month. We're closely tracking it.
I'm just asking the question, and I'm not asking for any more, but I just, going, wow, we're getting impacted by all of these actions too.
West Basin staff and Van Squack and Associates, our federal lobbyists, they are closely tracking this. We know where we are in the process, but we know that anything can happen. To the best of our knowledge, it's still moving forward. But I think once it gets to that execution point of executing the agreement, we could run into some problems. So we'll report back as soon as we know more.
That was my only question / comment. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.